طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Tonight, inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to attempt to complete or conclude Surat Al-Munafiqoon if I can. I have a very bad track record in getting these things done, but we only have four more verses left. The problem is that the verse that we're in, number 8, has a long story attached to it. So I'm going to tell you the story, and the story will take a little bit of time. But inshallah, subhanAllah, during fall and spring, the timing between Maghrib and Isha becomes convoluted. It's very long. So these are the longest halaqat that I run throughout the whole year. Is the ones that I run between Maghrib and Isha within like April, May, and June, because it's around an hour and maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I don't mind, but I know that people do. Never give a sheikh a microphone, because the moment he starts talking, he'll never stop. So I'm going to go through, we'll go inshallah until Isha, but I think we'll have enough time to finish it. So a quick recap. Surat Al-Munafiqoon, we're coming towards the end of Juz' Al-Mujadala, which is the cluster of surahs from the Mujadala to Tahrim. And this whole halaqah is designed to begin with Surat Qaf and end with Surat Al-Nas. This is called the Mufassal, the comprehensive. All of the Qur'an's values are basically summarized in these surahs. The first cluster of surahs from Qaf to Al-Hadid talked about comparisons, ethical and value-based comparisons that we talked about in some degree of depth over the past year and a half or two. And then the second cluster of surahs from Mujadala to Al-Tahrim, they're organizational surahs, because they're Madani, they were all revealed in Medina. Most of them, if not all of them, were late Madani surahs, meaning they were towards the end of his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. And they talk about organizing the relationships Muslims have with different groups, whether themselves or others, they're very organizational, fiqh-based surahs, and they're very short, and they summarize surahs that are much longer than them in the earlier parts of the Quran. And we went through the first maybe 5 or 6 surahs. Surat Al-Mujadala organized the relationship between Muslims and other Muslims, whether spouses or companions or people who work together or followers and their leaders. Organized that aspect, the nature of the relationship between Muslims and other Muslims within the community. Surat Al-Hashr talks about citizenship, the different types of people within the country, whether they are people who agree with you, Muslims that were there from the beginning, Muslims who came later, Munafiqoon, people from other faiths, and kind of how to deal with them. Surat Al-Mumtahina talked about the relationship between Muslims and non-Muslims, whether they are non-Muslims who are combative versus non-Muslims who are non-combative, and how to deal with both, and kind of went in some depth regarding that topic, and I shared that we took a long time with Mumtahina, so you can go back and listen to the recordings if you want to hear more. It's a beautiful surah, honestly. I think everyone should at least listen to the tafsir of it at least once in their lives. Surat Al-Saf talks about the social contract between the Muslim individual and the community, and what that entails, what's required of you. Surat Al-Jumu'ah talks about leadership within the Muslim community, and what that means, and what is required from followers and from leaders. And Surat Al-Munafiqoon talks about a group within society that are problematic, to say the least. Al-Munafiqoon, people you cannot label, you cannot remove them from society, and they don't actually carry their weight. Like, they're not willing to pick up the buy-in. They're going to call themselves Muslims. They're going to accept all the perks of being a Muslim, none of the obligations or responsibilities of being a Muslim. The verses that we recited over the last few weeks, within them Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as he subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them to us in different ways, being superficial, being people who feel the guilt of the fact that they're doing that. They show one thing, they hide the other. They use Islam as a way just to get to what they want. They're not interested, they don't respect the value, they don't respect the Prophet ﷺ, they don't respect it. Humul adubu fahdharhum. They are the enemy, beware of them. And these are two important statements. Like this small little piece in Surat Al-Munafiqoon that people read, don't notice, the most important piece of the surah. It defines for you who they are. They are your true enemy. Your enemy does not come from outside. Like, your true enemy is not the one on the other side of the rails. Your true enemy comes from within. Just like as a community, your enemy comes from within. Just like you as an individual, your true enemy also comes from within. It all comes from within. We're always looking, always scared from what's outside. It's always from what's inside. The problem is under your nose, you're just not looking at it. It's always there. Like your solution and your problem has always been right there. You're looking in the wrong place. So as a community, Muslim community, the problem is within us. It's not from without us. It's inside. So what we do with them? Do we fight them? No. فَاحْذَرْهُمْ. You have to beware of them. قَاتَلَهُمُ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish them in this life and the hereafter. Your job is to beware, not to allow these freeloaders, these freeloaders upon Islam to ruin that which you are trying to achieve. Don't allow them with their negativity, with their lack of buy-in, with their lack of commitment, with their lack of dedication, with their lack of belief, with their lack of iman, with their lack of care, with their indifference to ruin what it is that you're trying to achieve for a community. You're not allowed to exclude them, you're not allowed to fight them, you're not allowed to remove them, but you're not allowed them to ruin your progress either. It's a very delicate matter, which is why it has a surah in the Quran named after them. And then if you want, this is the summarized version, you want the detailed version, go to Surat At-Tawbah. Go to Surat At-Tawbah and it'll detail things for you. It'll tell you in depth what the problem actually is. And at the end of this surah, today, and if not today, maybe early the next weekend, next halaqah, when we start Surat Al-Taghabun, I'll kind of summarize the points. Like the different descriptions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave of the munafiqeen and put them all together. And then you'll see them. Why? So that we can categorize our community? No, so that you can hold yourself accountable to them. So that you can project them on yourself and make sure that you're not one of those people. That you're not picking up some of these characteristics of the munafiqeen. Because it's like we have this big carriage that we're trying to move along a road. Some of us are pushing, some of us are sitting on top. And some of us are pushing backwards. Some of us are pushing backwards. The backwards one, you need to fight them off. But you have a lot of people just sitting on top. They're just dead weight. They're dead weight. They're not interested in doing anything, in offering anything, in committing or dedicating themselves in any form or manner. There's no buy-in, but they also but they're there. They're getting perks. They deserve zakah. They deserve the protection. They get the service. They get all that stuff, but they're not willing to do anything. They're not actually contributing in any way. There's no contribution. There's no offering. That's a problem. That's a problem. There's a business model where they say like you get 80% of the work out of 20% of the people, or something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's an idea. And I think when it comes to Islam, I don't think it's any different. I think the percentage is worse. I think you're talking about maybe 90% of the work, maybe from 5% of the people, probably even worse, because there's a huge amount of most people who fall under these categories. Again, the goal here is not. I've made this very clear, and I want to make sure that just one more time, so I don't have to say it again. At no time, are you allowed to point someone else out as a munafiq. You're never allowed to do that. There's no circumstance that allows you to do that, ever. Unless somehow you are receiving revelation from the Almighty Himself, and He's telling you who's a munafiq. And even then, you wouldn't be allowed to expose them, because the Prophet ﷺ himself did not expose them. Yeah, himself ﷺ, who knew the names, did not expose them. He could have, he didn't. So even if you were to know who they are, you can't go. So the people who go online and go on TV or go, "Fulan munafiq, wa hada al-munafiq, wa hada al-munafiq," you have no idea how far away you are from understanding how Islam is supposed to be practiced. These ideas are for us, so that I hold myself to them and wonder, am I a munafiq? Am I behaving in a way that I shouldn't be behaving? And I fear for myself. And that's how we're supposed to take these verses. And they're also there for warnings, meaning for me to get on the minbar and say, look, beware of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, because this is what the munafiqeen do. And people listen to me and say, I don't want to be munafiq, so I don't want to do those things, so I don't do them. But the reality is that we have a lot of people who fall under this category. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not make us amongst them. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant those who are amongst them tawbah and hidayah and guidance, so they may come back and figure out their ways and do things appropriately. Nifaq is a spectrum. I'll end with that and then we'll start reciting the verses. It's a spectrum. So it's not just one thing. There's severe nifaq, where you actually hate Islam on the inside and act like you like it on the outside. And then there's something on the other where there's just an obligation, a communal or personal obligation that you are purposefully not doing. Or something, or a lack of contribution that you could offer that you're not. Something simple. But it's a spectrum of nifaq. So it's not just one action. Okay. So last week on Sunday, we recited ayah number 7. هم الذين يقولون لا تنفقوا على من عند رسول الله حتى ينفضوا ولله خزائن السماوات والأرض ولكن المنافقين لا يفقهون. This verse occurred during the battle of Ghazwat Bani al-Mustaliq. At least that's what we think. There are some opinions that it happened in a different time. This was a very difficult battle because they ended up preparing for being on the road for a certain period of time. They ended up being on the road for triple the amount of time. So when you go on a battle, back in the day, you would have to have your provision. Prepare your, you have to have enough shoes. I know it sounds weird, you have to take enough shoes because you're going to be walking on the desert for a long time. These shoes are going to be worn out, you're going to throw them out. So enough shoes, you have to have an animal that can take you that far, you have to have enough food and water. And you're responsible for taking that with you. You wouldn't freeload. No, people weren't allowed to go on a battle if they didn't have that. This is interesting. I'm going to take a second and just talk about that because I think people don't understand it. So if you're with the Prophet ﷺ and he's going on a battle and you're like, I have a sword. Yo, let's go. He'll stop you. Where's your horse or your camel? Well, I don't have one. Where's your provision? Oh, I'll just eat with the people. No. You're not allowed to go. You're like, no, I'm strong, I'm capable, I have my... Yeah, you're not allowed to go. You need provision. We're going to go 1,000 kilometers that way and back. That's going to require this amount of food and this amount of water and this amount of change, of clothing changes, and you need an animal to carry this for you, all right? You have those things, you come with us. If you don't have those things, I don't care how muscular you are or how skilled you are, you stay back. And you would have good reason to, meaning you would stay back and you wouldn't be a munafiq for doing it. You have udhr, ma'dhur, meaning you're excused for not going because you don't have enough wealth. But it wasn't just the idea that you you get your sword and your armor and you leave. No, you needed to have provision. You can't go freeload. You can't there 300 kilometers in, you're starving and you're thirsty and you have nothing. You can go eat someone else's food and drink someone else's water. No, you have to actually be prepared. So to me, this is one of the really nice examples of how the Muslims function. Everyone carried their weight. Everyone carried themselves and maybe carried more. Like if you were someone who was wealthy, you would prepare your own provision and then you would bring with you 4 or 5 camels that would carry other people as offerings for someone else to go who doesn't have enough wealth to do it. But for someone to come and expect that they're going to be served for free just because they're there, no, you stay back. You wouldn't go. And I find it fascinating that would be the case. The Prophet ﷺ did not force people that they had to provide for others. Nope. If you don't have enough provision, okay, you stay. Like, Ya Rasul, I want to be with you. I know, I want you with me too. But you don't have enough, so you can stay back. And they would not be held accountable for that. Not by the Prophet ﷺ, not by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because everyone's responsible for carrying their weight within the deen. Well, when you think about it, wouldn't that be nice if everyone carried their own weight? People came to a masjid, calculated the amount of time they spent in a masjid and decided, well, that is worth this much. And they took care of that piece themselves. And someone who brought their kids to a masjid to learn or calculated how much that would cost if they were going to some other place and then made sure that they carried that weight. People don't come to the masjid but benefit from the cemetery or benefit from the masjid when someone passes away or benefit from the shaykh. Maybe think about what that means. يَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا نَجَيْتُمُ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدِّمُوا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ نَجْوَاكُمْ صَدَقَةً. If you were going to go and ask the Prophet ﷺ for private counsel, you had to give a sadaqah. Not to him. He didn't want the money. Sadaqah is haram for the Prophet ﷺ to take anyways. Like it's haram for him to touch sadaqah. So he used that word subhanahu wa ta'ala so you wouldn't think that he's being paid. No. You'd have to offer the community sadaqah and then go access. Because a service being offered to you by the institution, by the religious group. So you carry your weight. You're going to take and not give. No, you have to take and you have to give. You have to make sure that as you are receiving and benefiting, make sure you're offering something so that everyone can do these things. I don't like charging people for stuff. I don't like it. We were just talking about it a second ago. Like we were talking about the tent. The tent is a nice place for maybe people have their thing, whatever they want to have, events, and we charge. I don't want to charge people for that. Come, do it for free. But ya akhi, carry your weight in the community. Contribute to the community. Contribute to the work. Contribute effectively. Ya akhi, use what we have for free. It is for the community. You're the community. It's for you. Use, but contribute instead of this whole transactional thing. Is I'll charge you for this and I'll charge you for that. I don't like that. No, I won't charge you. Bring your kids for the Quran for free. But contribute. Offer something. What are you offering? Pick up something, carry something for the community. Do something beneficial. Make sure that there's a contribution on your side. It doesn't have to be, not everyone has money, ya akhi. Not everyone has money. Maybe that's not your contribution. Maybe your contribution is in some other field. Maybe you have a skill set or expertise or time or knowledge or something you can offer, but offer something. Because the Munafiqeen and all of this surah, the Surat Al-Munafiqoon, all the Munafiqeen are freeloaders. All of them. They're not going to do anything. Not willing to carry their weight within the Muslim community, which makes it hard for him, alayhi salatu wasalam, to plan things. Because he counts, I have 1,500 people who can bear arms. Then he calls for jihad, he has 600 people show up. Where's the 900? Where are the 900 people gone? There's a discrepancy between the numbers I have and what I'm getting. Where is the 900 people? Yeah, that's nifaq. That's what nifaq does. It makes it impossible to plan anything or do anything because you have people who are just not going to show up when they're needed. They're not going to do the work when they're required. They'll just come in. Khawaja, Bik, Basha, just comes in. He parks his car, walks over, expects everything to work, expects Eid to just happen, and everything to be perfect so they can pray their Eid and go home. No contribution, ever, nothing at all. I offered nothing to make this happen. Made sure nothing was. This is nonsense. It's nonsense. I'm seeing it more and more in this community, and it's starting to bother me a little bit. I love serving people. This is what this place is built on. We build this place on this one concept of service. If you come in, we see you as someone who's worthy of service. We help you, we serve you. But after a while, you start wondering, what is everyone else doing? Does everyone else understand this? Are we all on the same page? Because if that's not the case, then there's an abuse of availability. You're abusing that which is available. You're not doing what you're supposed to do to maintain it, to sustain it, to keep it running and to improve it. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ struggled with this group of people that we're talking about. So what did they say? Because this was the battle. You had to have your provision. The battle ended up taking triple the time that they had planned for. So they ran out of provision. Everyone did. Except some of the really wealthy people who went out. Most of them were munafiqeen. They were very wealthy. They took way more than they needed. So everyone was coming together, putting the provision together and trying to help each other out because everyone was running low. So what did they say? The munafiqeen, لا تنفقوا على من عند رسول الله حتى ينفضوا. Don't give the followers of the Prophet, the people around the Prophet, don't give them anything. Like, hold back. If you have something extra to give, don't give it to them. حتى ينفضوا. So they'll fight and he'll lose his posse. He'll lose his group of people who support him, and that will weaken him. عليه الصلاة والسلام. So what they're saying, that don't لا تنفقوا, don't give على من عند رسول الله حتى ينفضوا. So they leave him. وَلِلَّهِ خَزَائِنُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And to Allah belongs the khaza'in, the treasures of this cosmos and the earth. But the munafiqeen, they don't know. They don't understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives whom He wants and holds back from whom He wants. And with the wealth that you have today doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have it forever. And if you're wealthy today, you may not be wealthy tomorrow. So use your wealth appropriately. And inshallah, if you're compassionate today, someone will be compassionate for you later on in your life, and that's how you'll continue. But they don't know that. They don't understand that piece. So they held back their wealth. One of the hallmarks of a munafiq is they hold back their wealth when they are needed to give it. They can give it and they should give it, but they don't give it. And then the Prophet ﷺ didn't say anything. That's why the people, this ghazwa was a disaster on a physical level. By the time they got back to Medina, their tongues and faces were green from eating leaves, and their toenails had fallen off their feet because they had no shoes to ride. Because it's just when you plan something out, they plan it to the best of the ability. Sometimes you plan out the battle perfectly, and then you end up with there's a curveball. There's a problem, and they ended up having to stay longer than they thought. And instead of people working together, there was a group that said, "Nope, I'm going to take all the toilet paper out of Walmart and keep it at home. I'm going to go buy all of this hand sanitizer and keep it at home. I don't care if anyone has it or not." Yeah, that's a problem. It's a problem of looking at the world around you. You have to behave in a way where if everyone else behaved, things would work. If you behave in a way where if everyone else did the same thing, the whole system would collapse, then you're a part of the problem, my friend. You're a part of the problem, my friend. You have to behave in a way where if everyone did what you're doing, things would work perfectly. We would improve. We would be on a trajectory of khair, of things getting better. If you're behaving in a way where if everyone did what you're doing, things would collapse, then you're a part of the problem. And you don't even know it. It's even worse. Because there's one thing to know that you're part of the problem, because at least now you have clarity, you can do some changes. But if you're a part of the problem and you don't even know that you're a part of the problem, Allah, this is so lost, it's not even funny. One of the scholars was asked about people for wisdom. So he said, there are 4 types of people. فقال, just take this kind of thing for yourself. فقال هناك عالم يعلم أنه عالم. There is a scholar or a knowledgeable person who knows that they're knowledgeable. فذلك تعلم منه. That person, learn from them. They're knowledgeable, they know that they know what they know. They have knowledge and they know what they know. وآخر يعلم ولا يدري أنه يعلم. And then there's someone who's knowledgeable but doesn't recognize that they're knowledgeable. فذلك غافل فنبهوه. That's someone who has lost their focus, so remind them. Like remind them back that you have something to offer, you have a lot of value that you can offer later on. وثمة وآخر جاهل يعلم أنه جاهل فذلك علموه. And then there's someone who is ignorant and they know they're ignorant, so teach them, bring them, help them. وآخر يجهل ويجهل أنه يجهل فذلك أحمق فاجتنبوه. And then there's the ignorant who does not know they are ignorant. Stay away from those, because there's no fixing that. There's no fixing that. There's no fixing it. Allahumma ya Rabb sallimna wa afina from being someone like that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. Wallahi. So that's what happened on that ghazwa. There's another piece of the story that happened during that ghazwa, that the Munafiqeen did something. That we're going to recite this ayah number 8 and I'll explain it to you inshallah ta'ala, and then hopefully we'll have enough time to conclude the surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. آية number 8 inshallah of Surat Al-Munafiqoon. يقولون لئن رجعنا إلى المدينة ليخرجن الأعز منها الأذل ولله العزة ولرسوله وللمؤمنين ولكن المنافقين لا يعلمون. يقولون, they say, they're saying the munafiqeen, لَإِن رَجَعْنَا, when it is that we go back, رَجَعْنَا, go back, لَإِن رَجَعْنَا, if we make it back or when we make it back, it's if or when is probably a more appropriate translation in this context, لَإِن رَجَعْنَا, and lam here is for tawqeed, the emphasis, that for sure, when we make it back, لَيُخْرِجَنَّ الْأَعَزُّ مِنْهَا الْأَذَلُّ. Al-Azz is the superior, or the one with higher levels of integrity. Al-Adhal, the humiliated, the one who has no integrity, the inferior. لَيُخْرِجَنَّ, meaning the lam here is also emphasis, and the noon that has the shadda on the end of this verb is also for emphasis. So they're using two emphasizing tools within one verb, and this is very common within the Arabic language, and they use it. لَيُخْرِجَنَّ, indeed, yukhrij, remove. The superior will remove the inferior from it. Minha. Minha meaning from Medina. When you go back to Medina, the superior will remove the inferior from Medina. He meant, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul meant himself removing the Prophet ﷺ, the Muslims. That's what he said. So what happened? Here's what happened. As I said, people are starving, it's really difficult. They come by a well that has a little bit of water in it. So naturally people are thirsty and starving. So a little bit of shoving and pushing was happening around the well. Naturally, understandably, so a little bit of, people were getting a little bit antsy. The Muhajir, Ansari, there were more Ansar than there were Muhajirin, obviously, in all of these battles. Meaning there were more people from Medina, from Khazraj and Aus, than there were from Mecca or other parts of the Muslim of Arabia who immigrated to Medina to be with the Prophet ﷺ, and they're called Muhajirin. So there was always a little bit more Ansar than there are Muhajirin. So they were shoving and pushing. فَكَسَعَ رَجُلٌ مِّنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ رَجُلًا مِّنَ الْأَنصَارِ. That's the wording in the hadith of Imam Ahmad. And the story I'm telling you exists in the books of hadith and is authentic, and you can go back and I've narrated it a couple of times in the after Isha Khawatir in the past. فَكَسَعَ meaning and there was a little bit of a nudge. Someone kind of elbowed, when the Muhajirin elbowed a man from the Ansar. فَقَالَ يَا لَلْأَنصَارِ. So one of the guy who got hit, he got really upset, so he called upon the Ansar. Ya al-Khazraj, Ya al-Aws, he called upon his people. So a couple of guys from his tribe and from the background came and ganged up on this Muhajir, who called Ya al-Muhajirin. He called on the Muhajirin. So a couple of the Muhajirin came. And before this turned into a full-fledged fight, the Prophet ﷺ heard about it. They had camped, just to understand, when armies are moving, they move. When it comes to and they camp around an oasis, right, or a place where there are trees, so that they can sleep under the shade, and there's enough water for people to, and then they would rest for a couple of hours, and they would set up some small tents for people to. So the Prophet ﷺ was in his tent, and he heard. So he came running out, ﷺ, وَلَمْ يَلْبِسْ قَمِيصَهُ, meaning he wasn't fully dressed. Meaning he didn't take enough time to actually get dressed, ﷺ. He ran out of the tent, getting dressed as he's coming out, calling upon them, دعوها فإنها منتنة أبي دعوى الجاهلية وأنا بين ظهرانيكم. You're going to use the callings of Jahiliyyah, and I'm still alive. I'm still here. I'm not dead yet. You're going to go back. You guys are going to regress to Jahiliyyah that quickly. This is what he would continuously scared them with, alayhi salatu wasalam. Like, if you want to know what his method of kind of reminding people or reminding the Sahaba is that do not ever regress back to the ways of Jahiliyyah. Never go back to that way of thought and that way of life and those ethics and those morals, and don't go back to that. So Abi Da'wa al-Jahiliyyah, you're using the callings of Jahiliyyah, where my tribe and your tribe, and then the two groups come, and then you have al-Basus or Dahis wal-Ghabra or whatever battles that the Arabs spent maybe 3 or 4 or 5 decades fighting, with the blood count going to 3,000 or 4,000 because some guy killed some other guy's camel. Yeah, for a camel or a horse. And then the blood count is 3,000 after 40 years. And the people, a full generation has died, and a new generation is there, and they don't even know why they're fighting. Like, none of them were alive when this problem happened. Like, the person who still carries the grudge against the other tribe wasn't alive when the initial problem actually occurred. So he comes out. Abi da'wa al-jahiliyyati wa ana bayna dhahranikum. You're regressing back to the callings of Jahiliyyah, and I'm still alive amongst you. Da'uha, leave it. فَإِنَّهَا مُنْتِنَةٌ. This is disgusting. This is disgusting. He would say this twice in his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. Once now, and once later during Hunayn. It would happen around Hunayn as well. I mean, when I tell the story when I tell the seerah, I tell the story almost twice, with different contexts for both, but the same wordings he would use, alayhi salatu wasalam. Leave it. He would natan. Natan is something that is rotten. That is rotten, meaning you can't. It smells horrible. It's not usable. You can't use it, and it smells. Muntina, meaning it is something that will cause rot. It's not just rot in itself. It's going to cause rot. It's disgusting. So they all came back. Everyone calmed down. He would go back, alayhi salatu wasalam, but now the aftermath of all the gossip. And now Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul would start saying things. He would say, amongst the things he would say, مَا مَثَلُنَا وَمَثَلُ هَؤُلَاءِ إِلَّا كَالْمَثَلِ الْقَائِلِ سَمِّن كَلْبَكَ يَأْكُلْكَ. The example of us and these people that we've allowed into our city, he's referring to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the Muhajirin, is just like the proverb that says, feed your dog well and he'll eat you. This is what he started to say. And of course, he's saying it publicly, and it's making its way to the Prophet ﷺ's ears. The Sahaba are hearing this. A boy called Zayd ibn Arqam heard these things. He heard him say that. And then he heard him say, لَيُخْرِجَنَّ الْأَعَزُّ مِنْهَا الْأَذَلِّ. When we go back to Medina, this time is going to be different. This time the superior is going to remove the inferior from this city. We're going to kick the inferiors out. It's blunt racism, right? Just open racism. What is racism? Racism is one group thinks they're better than another group. That's all it is. It's collective arrogance. And if I think I'm better than one person, that's arrogance. If I think I'm better than a whole race of people, that's racism. That's all it is. It's just like arrogance timed by 1,000,000. That's all. And that's what they were doing. Ya al-Muhajirin, Ya al-Ansar. Everyone's calling their tribe. Leave it. It's disgusting. This is rotten. This way of thought of my group against your group, our group better than your group, and dividing people based on bloodlines or based on this is rotten. This is racism. We don't want this. So they stopped. But Abdullah ibn Ubay couldn't help. He wanted to continue. So he would say these things. This is the example. Feed your dog, it'll eat you. It's very rude. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I hate even saying it, but it's just something for you to understand. This is documented in the books of hadith with authentic chains of narration, so it's worth at least sharing with you. The superior will remove the inferior. So he's meaning the Prophet alayhi sallam. So Zayd ibn Arqam would go to the Prophet alayhi sallam and say, Ya Rasulullah, سمعت قال كذا وكذا. قال أسمعته أذنك? Are you sure your ear heard this? قال نعم يا رسول الله. And he would leave him and come back and say, Ya Rasulullah, I heard him say this. قال يا هذا أذنك سمعته? Are you sure your because he was trying to teach him something, but he didn't learn it right then and there. But don't do this. Don't bring in, no, don't. Keep it to yourself. Just don't spread this type of fitna. 3 times he would come and tell the Prophet ﷺ, I heard this. قال أسمعته أذنك? Are you sure? You sure your ear heard this? And then of course, a lot of people came and said, Ya Rasulullah, he's saying this publicly. So he would look at this young kid who was getting scared that the Prophet ﷺ was accusing him of lying. فقالت وفت أذنك. Your ear is loyal. No, you heard it. But he was trying to teach him that don't bring this stuff. فقال يا رسول الله عمر بن الخطاب قال يا رسول الله مر معاذا فليضرب عنقه. Mu'adh bin Jabal. Not himself. See, Umar was too smart. He didn't say, tell me to chop his head off, because he's a muhajir and that's an Ansari. We're going to go back to the same thing. If the Prophet ﷺ tells Umar, go bring me Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul's head, then now it's a muhajir killed an Ansari, ya ahla wa sahla. Now we're going to start all over again. So he told Mur Mu'adhan, tell Mu'adh. Mu'adh bin Jabal was related to Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. Both of them were from Khazraj, and he was related, meaning a distant cousin, but from the same family, same basic tribe. And Mu'adh bin Jabal was one of the great Sahaba, radiallahu anhu warda, one of my favorite. So tell Mu'adh to go take his head off. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يا عمر لا يقول الناس محمد يقتل أصحابه. No, I will not have people saying that Muhammad is killing his companions. I'm not going to have people say that someone said something and then I killed. No, we're not going to do that. فقال يا رسول الله يقول كذا ويقول كذا. And people were coming to him saying, how are you going to leave? It's a really interesting dynamic, because alayhi salatu wasalam is risking losing the support of the people who are loyal to him. As they're saying, you have to take care of this person and how he's behaving and what he's doing. He's holding back provision for people who are starving. He's telling his allies not to feed others. He's making a problem. He's saying words that are inflammatory, that are racist. He's encouraging people to behave in racist ways. He's saying things about you right in front of you, under your nose, and you're not doing anything about it. فقال بل نحسن معشره ما بقي فينا. But he said, alayhi salatu, everything I'm telling you that he said, you'll find in books of hadith, and they're authentic. You can go look them up. بل نحسن معاشرته وعشرته ما بقي معنا. We will continue. We're not going to do that. We're not going to kill him. We're not going to take his head off. We're not going to remove him. We're going to continue to treat him with excellence. نحسن معشره. We're going to have ما بقي معنا. As long as he's in appearance he's with us, as long as his appearance he continues to come with us, and I'm going to continue to treat him well. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ajma'in. And then his son, Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul's son, his name was Hubab. And the Prophet ﷺ changed his name to Abdullah. So his name was Abdullah ibn Abdullah ibn Ubay bin Salul, right? So it was his son. And he was a great Sahabi. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, سمعت مقالة أبي. I know you've heard what my dad said. وسمعت مقالة الناس. And I've heard what people have said. Ya Rasulullah, إذا أمرت أحدا بضرب عنقه فأمرني فإني لا أظن أني أحتمل رؤية قاتل أبي. Said, Ya Rasulullah, if you're going to call someone to take his life, to execute him, then tell me. Don't tell anyone else. I don't think I could walk and live seeing someone who killed my father. I don't think I could do it. I think he's telling him, I'm vulnerable in this position. If you tell someone else to take his life, it'll be very difficult for me to just, if this is needed, if what he has said is deserving of him being punished, then I'll do it. I'll do it and no one else has to do it. فقال لا بل نحسن معشره. He said it again to Abdullah, his son. We will continue to treat him well. ما بقي معنا. As long as he continues to be with us, we will leave. فقال يا رسول الله والله ما ينبغي أن يقول قولته. But he shouldn't have said that. Even his son was like, something has to happen. The Prophet ﷺ said nothing. We're doing nothing. We're going to leave it as it is. ليخرجن الأعز من الأذل. The superior will remove the inferior. He's speaking about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who is higher status than the Prophet ﷺ? That's what he's saying. But I always felt it was just very meaningful to observe the Prophet ﷺ being so patient and forgiving towards someone like that. You see, people missed why he was doing it. He didn't, ﷺ. He knew why. He knew what happened. He knew how close this man was to being king, and how his prophecy and his presence in Medina ruined all of it. So the part of the Prophet ﷺ felt bad for him. It's very hard, by the way, to do this. It's hard for someone who, like you can feel bad for someone and then they harm you and they're like, khalas, gloves are off. Gloves are off, they did something. This man harmed the Prophet ﷺ 12 times documented. Like 12 documented times in the Quran and the Sunnah. Aside from the times I don't even know about. Like 12 documented times he called Aisha something. Like, you know, he went after his wife, ﷺ. And still nothing. He still wouldn't, because in his heart he's like, yeah, he was going to be king. And I took his throne. I took his crown. So he kept on forgiving him. He kept on finding in his heart space to forgive this man. And when this man died, years later, his son, I don't know why this story bothered it. I've told the story like a million times. I find this story very hard. I don't know why. I don't know what the reason is. SubhanAllah. When his dad died, his son Abdullah would come and tell the Prophet, Rasulullah, he died. Would you salli upon him? And the Prophet ﷺ didn't hesitate. He got up, and not only did he praise janazah for him, he encompassed him or enwrapped him with his own burda, alayhi salatu wasalam. And then the Quran came and said, وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ. Then the Quran came and said, don't do this again. But not before. Not before, after. After, because he wanted us, subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to see this. Because Umar, the whole time as he's walking towards his janazah, Umar ibn Khattab said, Ya Rasulullah, he's counting the 12 documented times. He did this. And he said this. He did, what are you doing? Don't do this. Umar ibn Khattab, we know this story because Umar ibn Khattab would say, وَافَقَنِي رَبِّي فِي ثَلَاثٍ. There are 3 things I told the Prophet ﷺ not to do, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala agreed with me later. And one of the things was, وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ إِنَّهُمْ كَفَرُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَمَاتُوا هُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. So he never did it again, alayhi salatu, but he did it for that guy, just for his son. And for the value of Abdullah, it was his son, Abdullah. He says he couldn't break his heart. He couldn't tell his son that I won't do it for you. No, I'll do it for you. That's how valuable every Muslim was to him, alayhi salatu. He was willing to forgive the father just for his son. Yeah. But that is something that's about his character. That he didn't feel that, no, I couldn't do it. You have no, your father, he's lucky I left. No, he just, because death ends all grudges. Once the person's dead, what's the point? Khalas, they're dead. They're lost. They're lost, they're dead. And soon you'll be dead too. And there's nothing, it's so hard. Like, it's such a waste of time to continue to carry a grudge after someone dies. Wallah. They're gone. They're with Allah. They're going to take care of them. Let it go. Let it go. You don't have to forgive them, but let it go. Don't continue to carry the hatred and it's just not worth it. Wallahi. Alayhi salatu wasalam, the guy died. And he went to pray janazah for him. And he gave him his burda. And it didn't change anything for this man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, he's not going to get anything else. But he did it, alayhi salatu wasalam. And to me, that's just fascinating, because I don't know how he would do it. Like, I can't put a scenario in my mind where I would do that. And this is why I think you should study his life, alayhi salatu, in depth. Because you're going to run into situations where it's almost impossible for you to imagine. It's impossible to do what things he did, alayhi salatu wasalam. So selfless, and so open-hearted, and so loving, and so compassionate in ways that he was very brave, and he stood his ground, and he fought, and he wasn't a coward. He didn't back down when things needed to be confronted and needed to be dealt with. He did all of that. And when someone but life would show you moments where he would, that compassionate people come out. And the guy died. Even though he did this, even though he went around telling, don't give any of the people around him money, so he loses all of his, and he starved. This guy literally starved people to death. And he said the example is the example of feeding, and when we go there, the superior will finally get rid of the inferior. He's saying all these things publicly, not even saying it in small groups where a few people are coming and bringing it. Everyone knows about it. He is publicly trying to humiliate the Prophet ﷺ. He says, no, نُحْسِنْ مَعْشَرَهُ مَا بَقِيَ فِينَا. Because the Prophet ﷺ knows something that he doesn't. You know what it is? Second piece of this verse. The verse says it. وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَكِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. The munafiqeen, they don't know. They don't know that to Allah and to His Prophet and to the believers, all integrity and izzah belong. Even if right now they are poor. even if they are dying, even if they don't run the world and own everything. Izzah, true integrity belongs to Allah and belongs to those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows it upon them. And that is the fact, and that is the truth. And the munafiq doesn't know that. The munafiq thinks he has some wealth, he has some support, he has izzah. You don't have izzah. You're not the azz and he's not the adhal. It's the opposite. Why? Because Yawm al-Qiyamah is when things matter. Because Yawm al-Qiyamah is when things matter, when it's forever, when it's eternal. And on that day, we'll see who is Aziz and who is Dhalil, who has integrity and who doesn't, who is held in high regard and who is humiliated. And in that day, he doesn't know. He doesn't know what actually matters. He thinks this short period of time is what. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's what's going to come later. It's living for the right cause, for the right reason, in the right way. That's going to make you and put you in the position of izzah on the day of judgment, because it belongs to God. It belongs to no one else but Him. He gives an illusion of it to some people in this dunya, then He takes it back, and then He bestows it upon His beloved on the day of judgment. So make sure you're amongst them. Just make sure you're amongst them. That's all. وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَكِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. They don't know. The munafiq doesn't know. Doesn't know who خَزَائِنُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ in the first ayah before belongs to. The munafiq doesn't know who true izzah belongs to. So the munafiq, because they don't know, they withhold their wealth and they build alliances with enemies just because they're scared. They want strength. They don't know that their wealth comes from God, so give it generously. They don't know that izzah comes from God, so your ally is Allah and those whom He loves, and not the enemy who has wealth and has strength. But the munafiq doesn't know. So they build alliances with people based on strength, and they withhold wealth because they think that wealth is. They don't know. لا يفقهون لا يعلمون, twice, right? They lack clarity, they lack knowledge, they don't know. So make sure you know. Make sure you know what matters, what counts, what's real, and what's just temporary and doesn't matter, never did, and will add up to nothing later on in life. Speak to people who are in their 80s and 90s, and they'll give you these pieces of wisdom for free. Speak to them non-Muslim. Go up to some non-Muslim 90-year-old. They'll give you this piece of wisdom for free. They'll tell you that, no, stand by what you think is right. Live by what you think is right. Nothing that matters at the end. At the end, you end up feeling that your life was just ashiyatan aw duhaha. You sit there at 90, you don't even know how you got there. You don't even know where time went, and you feel like your whole life was a waste. What did I do? What do I stand for? What is my legacy? What have I done with the time that I had? And if you didn't, yeah. The interesting piece at the end of the story is that Abdullah ibn Abdullah, he couldn't help it. He was so upset by what his father did, he came to his father and the posse around him. فَقَالَ قُلْتَ لَيُخْرِجَنَّ الْأَعَزُّ مِنْهَا الْأَذَلُ. You said that? فَوَاللَّهِ لَا تَدْخُلُوا مَدِينَةَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ حَتَّى يَأْذَنَ لَكَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. You will not enter Medina until he gives you permission, and I'm going to stand between you and Medina. So his father started to call, يَا مَعْشَرَ الْخَزْرَجِ Ibni yahulu bayni wa bayna bayti. My son is between me and my home. He don't let me go in. They left him. Abdullah ibn Abdullah he didn't want to mess with him. He wasn't any guy. And he told his father, you're not entering until you seek permission from the A'az, the one who is superior. You'll seek permission from him. If he lets you in, then you'll come in. The whole army entered Medina, and Abdullah ibn Ubay bin Salul and the people with him were held outside by Abdul, his son. You're not going in. The Prophet ﷺ knew none of this. He knew none of this. Someone told him, Ya Rasulullah, by the way, Abdullah ibn Abdullah is holding his father outside, saying that he won't come in without your permission. فَقَالَ أَخْبِرُوهُ فَلْيُدْخِلْهُ بَيْتَهُ وَلْيَأْذَنْ لَهُ. Tell him to let him in. وَلْيُحْسِنْ صُحْبَةَ أَبِيهِ. And tell him to show birr to his father. Tell him to show birr to his father and to allow his father to come in. قال فأخبروا عبد الله فقال أما وقد أذن رسول الله فنعم. As now the Prophet ﷺ is telling me to do this, then yes, you're welcome to enter your home. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ajma'in. So subhanAllah, he got it from his own family. So the finale of Surat Al-Munafiqoon, which is a beautiful, these 3 verses are really very beautiful, and most people know them and memorize them by heart. We'll recite them. They're like a piece of advice. Like after the surah described the munafiqeen, gave us a couple of descriptions. It told us the munafiqeen are people who say one thing, but don't actually have the buy-in. They say Nashhadu anna Rasulullah, but they don't actually do what they have to do for it. They use Islam as a way to protect themselves to get the perks, but no, they're not going to carry any of the weight. They're not going to contribute, just going to take the good. They are people who, they know how to speak, they dress well, they're superficial but no essence. And there are people who are كأنهم خشب مسندة يحسبون كل صيحة عليهم. They carry the guilt. They know that they're at fault, so they're always, anytime someone talks about this, they feel that they're meant by it, even no one's actually speaking to them. It's like when you know that you've done something wrong, when someone talks about that wrong thing, you feel like it's addressing you, but it's not addressing you, it's just a generic. They are the enemy, beware of them. They have no respect to the Prophet ﷺ. They don't care about their sin in any form or manner. They withhold their wealth when they're capable of giving it, and they are big on the racist piece. They don't like Islam. They want to go back to the tribal way. They want to go back to the nationalities. Suri, Masri, Palestini, Iraqi, Pakistani, Lebanese, Hindi, Turkey. We go back to this stuff so we can, and each group comes to their own thing and we fight with one another, and that's what they want to do. They don't like the fact that Islam brought people together and just made us all equal and made us all brothers. They don't like that piece. These are the descriptions that the Quran has given, this surah has given of the Munafiqeen. So think about them long and hard. Take time and reflect upon these because they're problematic. Allah yatub alayna, we all have a little bit of it. We're all carrying a little bit of that in our hearts. May Allah forgive us. And this last piece here is direct advice to the believers. So direct advice for all of us is really beautiful. So we'll recite them inshallah. Inshallah you'll find them nice. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tulhikum amwalukum. لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون. وأنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت So watch out, أحدكم. So it's not. So the dal here is usually ignored or oppressed, and then you give a dhamma to it. So it's not ahadukum, ahadakum. And then the word maut has a dhamma on it. So it's ahadakumul mautu. So the fa'al here, the subject is al-maut, and the maf'ul bi, or the object is ahadakum, one of you. Because you don't go to death, death comes to you. So it's just sometimes the subject can be put behind the object. In Arabic, you can move things around a bit for a reason. There's a reason for why we do this. I'll try and explain it inshallah in a moment. Just watch out, ahadakumu. And if you were to continue, al-mawtu. If you were to continue, we stopped al-maut because we stopped, it's going to have a sukoon. But if you were to continue, it would be al-mawtu with a dhamma on it. All right. فيقول رب لولا أخرتني إلى أجل قريب فيقول not فيقول فيقول. So this ayah is when I examine students who are trying to pass this juz', this is like a guaranteed question. I tell them, read وَأَنْفِقُوا. And they make one mistake on it, and I send them back, else you fail. This is like, I used to have, when I used to do this with students, I used to have like deal breakers. I call them deal breakers. For every juz', there were a couple of deal breakers. If I examine you and make a mistake there, you're out. It doesn't matter how perfectly you did everything else. If you get one of these words wrong, you're out. So, مِن قَبْلِ أَن يَأْتِيَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ فَيَقُولَ رَبِّي. Right? So you have to get them all right. أَحَدَكُمُ with a fatha on the dal, al-mawtu with a dhamma on the ta, فَيَقُولَ with a fatha on the lam. You have to get them all right. If you got one of them wrong, it was a deal breaker. And I think he's not here, but one of the students who failed because of it is still amongst us. Yeah, alhamdulillah, they didn't stop coming to the masjid altogether. But I would fail people. It's because some mistakes you have to know, if you're proficient in the juz', you have to know this ayah and how to recite it appropriately. All right. So this is why فَيَقُولَ رَبِّي لَوْلَا أَخَّرْتَنِي. All right. فَأَصَّدَّقَ وَأَكُن مِّنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. وَلَن يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا. وَاللَّهُ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. So he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, O those who believe, لَا تُلْهِكُمْ. Lahu is distraction. Iltiha is to be distracted. There's lahu wal la'ib. La'ib is when you do something that is purposeless. It's just fun. It's purposeless. It doesn't have there's no benefit of it. Lahu, you can be doing something that's purposeful, but it's not the right thing to do right now. Like in priority wise, it's not the right thing to do. So it's called lahu. So it can be something purposeful, something helpful, something that has an objective. It's just not the right thing to do right now. It's like if you have an exam and you're cleaning your room. You're organizing your desk. It's a very purposeful activity, not what you should be doing today. Do it after your exam, do it then, not now. But it's lahu. So do something to distract yourself. So la'ib is just fun or games. And yes, there is some benefit obviously from playing certain things, especially kids who are playing sports and whatnot. But la'ib is just basically an activity that has no purpose to it. It's just for pure joy. And adults will do that, and it's fine. It's not haram to la'ib is not haram. It's just when it's not in the right time for it or not in the right way, then that's a problem for it. So it's just something. So it's not. And we talked about this when we recited Surat Al-Hadid. I talked about this in some degree of depth. يَعْلَمُ أَنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ وَلَهٌ وَزِينَةٌ. So I explained them in some degree of depth. You can go back to that if you want to listen to, if this is something that you care about. So يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, O those who believe, لَا تُلْهِكُمْ, do not be distracted by أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُكُمْ. Do not let your wealth nor your children, finance and social. That's what these two things in the Quran always refer to. Al-mal is always referring to the financial aspect of life, the financial joy of life or the financial needs. Al-walad, al-mal wal-banun, for example, right, is referring to the social aspect of life because you have people around you, so you're not alone, you're not lonely. People know that. When you grow old, you want people around you. People who enjoy your company, people who want to be with you. This is something we have to talk about in this community a little bit more. I think a lot of us come from backgrounds where it's not needed to be talked about a lot, but now we have to start actually discussing this within this society more. People are getting older, and they're lonely. You can be alone, but you shouldn't be lonely. All right? Being alone is helpful. It's actually very therapeutic. It's healthy to be alone, to sit around on yourself, contemplate, reflect, think, write, journal, read. These are very good. But lonely is where you want companionship and you can't find it. Where you need an ear. You need someone to listen to you, or someone to speak to you, or someone to be with you and you don't have them. And you need support and you don't have that. That's loneliness. Loneliness is not okay. We should not be, in our Muslims, in a Muslim community, there should not be people who are lonely. People can be alone. Introverts like to be alone, and that's totally fine, and they should be. But lonely, that shouldn't be the case. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks a lot about al-mal wal-walad all the time. And you're like, okay, money and kids. No, it's not just money and kids. It's money as in financial. You have enough to get through your day, you're not starving, you have clothing, that's what it meant. And then walad, I mean you have someone there. Right? That's why the Quran talks about al-miskeen, who is the one who is financially deprived, and the yatim, who is the one who is socially deprived. Because the yatim can have a lot of money, could have inherited Bruce Wayne. you can have someone who, yatim has a lot of money, but has no parents, no one to love them, no one to love back. They're lonely. So that's a social deprivation, deprivement, and that's a problem. And then there's the miskeen, who has a lot of people maybe, but doesn't have enough wealth to take care of them, and that's someone who needs financial support. So the Quran is very, very specific on these two needs and these two perks and benefits, which is the financial and the social. You need both. You need both, enough of both to survive, and you shouldn't be deprived of either of them to the point where you're not able to be functional. But this verse is saying, don't let them distract you. If you have enough of both, do not allow them to be distractions. لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله, from the remembrance of Allah. This doesn't mean that you're sitting there trying to do astaghfirullah, and your kid asks you to come to you and you're like, I'm trying to astaghfirullah. Allah said, don't. No, this is not about this. This is a zoom out ayah. Don't allow what He gave you, what He blessed you with, distract you from why He created you to begin with. That's what this is saying. This is what this is saying. He gave you wealth and He gave you social support. You have a family, you have wealth. He blessed you with that. Don't allow those two things to distract you from why He created you to begin with. What you're here to do, what your job is, what your purpose is. If you allow the things He gave you to distract you from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this is a problem. This is a problem of nifaq. He gave you wealth, He gave you social support. He gave it to you so that you may use it to please Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you use it to actually strengthen and improve your way to get to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't lose them as distractions. Because you can easily live all your life focused on your money, making more money, increasing your business, investing and making more. And your time, visiting this person, visiting that person, traveling this person, and spending this. You can totally be distracted by them. And nothing else is important. No. Enjoy them, of course. No one's saying, give away your money. No one's saying, remove your children. It's the opposite. Islam tells you, preserve your wealth. Use your wealth. Love your children. Take care of your children. Just don't let them distract you from the bigger picture. That's all. لا تلهكم. Don't let them distract you. عن ذكر الله. From knowing and remembering Allah. And remembering why He put you here. It's not an issue of I'm sitting at my house and I want to do some tasbih and my wife is not leaving or my children aren't being quiet. No, that's not what this is about at all. In many situations, it's more important actually to attend to your family. Attending to your family with right intention is an act of worship. It's a really good act of worship, actually. It's very good to raise them and teach them and take care of them, to work and make wealth. You're commanded to do so. You're not allowed to walk around. Again, the surah has been talking about freeloaders. You're not supposed to do that. But now that you have it, don't let it distract you, because it can easily become a distraction. It can easily become a distraction and take you away from the purpose for why you are here. He created the dunya for you, and He created you for Himself. Don't be distracted by what He created for you from the purpose for which He created you for. Because if you do, then you're in this vicious cycle. Like He made dunya for you, and you're living for dunya. This is pathetic. No. He made dunya for you, He made you for Him. So make sure that this is the hierarchy that this works upon. Dunya is there for you so that you can be for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So be for Allah with the dunya that you have. The dunya that's for you, you're going to live for it. No, that's not a good way to live anyways. You know that at the end. You figured that at the end, that wasn't the right way to do it. So yes, enjoy your wealth and love your children, but they shouldn't be distractions. They should be helping you get closer to Allah. This ayah is not telling you to spend less time or to ignore or to neglect. It's telling you to utilize appropriately. It's telling you to see them the way they should be seen, as blessings, as means for you to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be a better human being. Your wealth is there so that you make it closer to Allah, so that you can use it to please Allah. Your children are there so you can raise them to be good Muslims, so that they are also close to Allah and all of you are closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why they're there. But if you don't see that and you're distracted by the fact that you're well supported, you're strong and you're wealthy and you're... لا تلهكم. Don't let them distract you. Don't let them take away the focus. وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ. And those of you who do that, who allow their wealth and their children, their social and financial support to distract them from their purpose, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. And those are the ones who are going to be the biggest losers on the Day of Judgment. They're the ones who will lose all of it. They'll come Yawm al-Qiyamah, their wealth is not there, and their children are not there, and they'll have nothing. Had they used their wealth and their children in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they'll find all of it waiting for them. They'll find their wealth and their mizan hasanat and their children. And their children waiting for them, taking them by their hands as they enter Jannah together. Because it's your family. When you look at your spouse, you look at your children, you see the people who you're going to be entering Jannah with, not the opposite. Not the opposite. Wallahi, this ayah is, it's a very powerful one if you're able to zoom out a little bit and contemplate. We're very blessed. Those of us who have enough wealth to fill our fridges and close our doors at the end of the night, and those of us who have people who love us and people whom we love back. We are very blessed. He's saying, subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't let that blessing distract you though. Because any blessing I give you, I give it to you for a purpose. Use it well. Use it well. Use it in a way that will please me. Subhanallah. Jalla Jalalullah. Use it in a way that will please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't use it in a way that distracts you. Now you're focused on it. You're focused on every aspect of it. You forget why you were given it in the first place. And then maybe it's taken away from you later on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala salama. The second piece of advice he gives us subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of Surat Al-Munafiqoon, it's almost like this. He explained the munafiqeen to us and they said, look, here's what you need to do so that you're not amongst them. Here's 2 tips so that you're not munafiq. Number 1, don't allow what I give you to distract you. I will give you wealth, I will give you social support. You're going to get both in your life at different times and different degrees. You'll get both. Don't allow them to distract you from why I created you. I created you. Remember me. Idhkurillah. Know who I am. I created you. I give you a purpose. Do not allow what I gave you to distract you from what I created you for. All right? Number 1. That's the first vaccine against nifaq, so that we don't have it. That's the first vaccination. لا تلهكم. Number 2, وأنفقوا مما رزقناكم. And give from that which we gave you. Rizq is anything you're given. Your knowledge is rizq, your time is rizq, your expertise is rizq, your emotions are rizq, your wealth is rizq. Everything that you have is rizq. وأنفق is when you spend. You give something, you give something. It's not you give it away and you're not waiting for anything in return. That's infaq. Buying something is not infaq. No, that's a transaction. You give something, get something back. It's a bay' wa shira. Infaq is you give it, it disappears. It's like it goes into a nafaq. You don't see it. That's why the word comes from. And munafiq, by the way, comes from the same. I talked about this at the beginning. Comes from the same root. Is because he shows you that what he doesn't have on the inside. So you're not seeing things clearly. Something has disappeared. Something is not there. Something is missing. Something is missing because they're saying La ilaha illallah, but there's no output. When you say La ilaha illallah, there should be output right away. There's nothing. It's just La ilaha, there's nothing there. It's a problem. There's something missing. In nafaq, there's always something missing. Something went in there, it's missing now. Anfiqu, you gave the wealth, it's gone. It's gone, it's not there. It's missing. It'll come back yawm al-qiyamah though. That's the point with infaq, is that it's missing now, you gave it, it's gone. You gave it to someone, they took it, they left, they're not going to come back, give it to you. It's not a loan, and they're not going to thank you for it. It's just, it'll come back later. وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. It'll come back later. You'll find it yawm al-qiyamah. When it matters, when it really matters, when it really counts, you'll find it. So give from that which you have, that which we gave you. رَزَقْنَاكُمْ, what we gave you. Give from that which we gave you. Using 2 terms in Arabic that are very specific. Anfiq, give, not expecting anything in return. It disappears, meaning you're not looking for it again. رَزَقْنَاكُمْ, that which we bestowed upon you of provision. We provided you with a lot. We provided you with amwal. We provided you with awlad. We provided you with knowledge. We provided you with time. We provided you with a lot of things. Give, expect nothing in return. من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت. Before يأتي, something comes. Al-mawtu is the subject here. That's why it has a dhamma on it. It's a fa'il. So before death comes to one of you. So why did he put ahadakum, one of you? Why did he put al-maut at the end? He wanted to emphasize you. من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم. Before one of you comes to them, death. Death comes to them. Before one of you, death comes to them. That's how he's saying it, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Turning the sentence around a little bit to focus on you. You'll be sitting there, completely unexpecting. Take a moment. This is an exercise we were taught. We were taught in Tazkiyah to do this. Sit and imagine that you're going to die now. Just sit and do that. Imam Rabi'a bin Ka'b, not the Sahabi, but the tabi'i. What he used to do is before electricity existed, so at night he would take his bed and bring it closer to the wall until there was only just enough for one person to lie there. And then he would go and he would lie on the floor between the bed and the wall, and he would start talking to himself, Ya Rabi'a, mit, you died. And he starts speaking to himself and speaking about death until he fully envisioned his own death. And then he would stand up and say, Ya Rabi'a, ha qad ba'athak Allah, faqum fa aslih fi nafsik. Faqum fa aslih fi nafsik. Oh Rabi'a, Allah gave you another chance, so go and use it wisely. Go and use it wisely. Think This is not an exercise that brings upon you depression or anything. No, no, no. Nor does it make you someone who is pessimistic and dark. No. It actually brings a lot of joy and light to your life. When you sit and you envision and think about your own death and you accept it, the moment after is one of the most beautiful moments you'll live. The moment after when you're like, I'm not dead and I still have a chance and I still can do something good with my life. It's just a very beautiful moment. It's very refreshing. Like, yep, it puts things in perspective for you. Yeah, what matters and what doesn't really matter. What I was thinking about, was it even worth the time that I was spending thinking about it? What I was worrying about, was it worth worrying about to begin with? The grudges I carry and the animosities and the hatred and the worry, was it worth it? Or, alhamdulillah, I'm alive. Alhamdulillah, I'm alive. من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت, before death comes to one of you. فيقول ربي, and after that he will say, ربي, oh my Lord, لولا أخرتني إلى أجل قريب. لولا means could you have not? It's a question is, would it be okay? Could you have not done something? لولا أخرتني, could you have not postponed me? أخرت is when you postpone something or push it down in time-wise, but make it later. لولا أخرتني, could you have not have postponed me? إلى أجل قريب, to a near date, like just a little bit. أجل is an end of time. قريب, that is close. Meaning, don't take me now. Just give me a little bit more time. Just a little bit more time. فأصدق, and after that I will give sadaqah. I will prove my truth. I've explained this a lot. I don't want to waste your time. Sadaqah comes from truth. We call the act of charity sadaqah because it's an evidence of truth. When you give your money, it's evidence that you're truthful. But فأصدق means I will do things that will prove my truthfulness towards what it is I claim to be correct. I say, La ilaha illallah, prove it. Whatever you do to prove it is sadaqah. It's how you prove your truthfulness. I'm truthful. I say, La ilaha illallah, because at the beginning of the surah, remember? What do you say? إذا جاءك المنافقون, the munafiqun comes, قالوا نشهد إنك لرسول الله. They come and say, we bear witness you are the Prophet of Allah. والله يعلم إنك لرسول. And Allah knows you're His Prophet. He doesn't need their testimony. والله يشهد إن المنافقين لكاذبون. Allah bears witness that they're liars. But they bared witness. لا إله إلا نشهد أنك لرسول. You are Rasulullah. They said the shahada of Islam, but they had nothing to prove it. They had nothing to prove it with. Prove it. Prove that you believe. You believe in La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Prove it. Go ahead. It's a claim. The truth is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. You say, you don't say it, doesn't change. It's the truth. It's the reality. It's the only truth. When you say it, you have to prove it. Prove it. فَأَصَّدَّقَ. And I'll prove it. I'll perform deeds that will show my truthfulness. Whether it's giving wealth, and it's giving. How do you prove? You give. You give from whatever it is you have. What do you have? Just go back and assess, what do I have? Not everyone, I say this a lot, not everyone has wealth. Because I think sometimes we tunnel vision on microscopic wealth, it's money. It's not just money. Some people have time, some people have expertise, some people have skill set, some people have knowledge, some people. What do you have? Anfiq from what Allah gave you. Before one of you, death comes to them. And when it comes to them, they'll say, oh my Lord, could you have not just postponed me just a small amount of time? And then if you do, I would have shown my truthfulness. I would give in what I had. وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And I'll be amongst those who are pious. I'll be amongst those who are correct. وَلَن يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا. And Allah will never postpone a soul. إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا. When its time is up. إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا. Ajal is the end. When the end comes, Allah will never give more time. That's it. The end is there. That's the end. Maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. I don't know how long you're going to live. Maybe one of us doesn't walk out of this masjid tonight. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you long lives with afiyah. Allahumma ameen. You don't know. But when the time comes, the time comes. And when it comes, that's it. There's no second chance. This is the problem with life. There's no second chance. But every breath you take is a second chance. Every moment that you live is a second chance because it was never guaranteed for you to begin with. Something guaranteed you don't have to worry about. Something not guaranteed that you end up taking, that's a second chance. Right now I'm sitting here. It's 10 o'clock. The next hour is unguaranteed for me. Whether I live that hour or not, I don't know. Maybe I live it. Maybe I don't. I hope I do. I don't know. It's not guaranteed for me. It is not guaranteed if I end up getting it. It's a second chance for me because no one told me that I was going to get it. Anything guaranteed, if I'm told, no, you're fine for the next couple of years, then khalas. You don't have to think about anything. Which is what we do. We live lives where we're not thinking about what's coming next because we think we're guaranteed life. You're not. You're not. وَلَن يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا. When the time comes, Allah will not postpone a living soul. Wallahu khabirun bima ta'malu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is omniscient of that which you do. Khabir, he's talking about what's going on the inside. Subhanallah. How Surat Al-Munafiqoon, at the end of it, he didn't say Alim, the umbrella name. He didn't say Sami'a, what was said. He doesn't say Basir, what was seen. He doesn't say Latif, what is very complex. He said Khabir, that which is hidden, that no one knows but God, the intentions and the thoughts. Because nifaq is something that I can't call someone munafiq. I can't, no one can. It's something that exists on the inside. It's a problem that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. There are signs that are in the Quran for us to avoid for ourselves, but it's something only Allah knows on the inside. So at the end of this surah, he said, Wallahu khabir, and Allah knows exactly what you're doing on the inside. Khabirun bima ta'malun, what's happening on the inside. So he knows those of you who are truthful and those of you who are not. Those who are mu'min and those who are munafiq, that's something on the inside. He knows, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do it now. Those are the two advices he gave. You want to protect yourself from nifaq, you want the vaccination of nifaq. All right, number one, do not be distracted by what he gave you from what he created you. Don't be distracted by what he gave you from what he created you for. Number two, give from that which you have. Whatever he gave you, give from it. Give before the moment comes where you wish you did and there's no way to do it. I hope that was a benefit. And this concludes with Munafiqoon.